All right, we're on air. Welcome, everybody. This is Erica Jefferson with Black Women in Science and Engineering, and we're back for another week for our career chat. And we have a special treat today because we have some very influential young men who I'm sure our viewers will be excited to hear from. For those of us who are on the engineering side of STEM, these are kind of, the forefathers of all of us who kind of paved the way. Two of the founders of NSBE are joining us tonight, and they're going to tell us a little bit about NSBE and how they got started, some of the challenges maybe when they started their engineering careers, and then what they're doing now. So I don't want to take up too much of their time, so I want to make sure I just do a real cursory introduction, and then they're going to go in more depth and tell you about themselves. So without further ado, we have George, is it C. Smith?
George Smith.
George Smith. And go ahead.
Okay, so my name is George Smith. My background is electrical engineering from Purdue University. After getting my electrical engineering degree, I went to work for General Electric as a manufacturing engineer. From there, I went on to Hewlett-Packard as a sales engineer, technical sales engineer. That's where I spent the majority of my time in corporate America.
Okay.
I was there for 14 years, the last 7 as a district sales manager. I had 2 other careers after that. The first was a sort of what's now known as Six Sigma consulting. Back then it was called total quality management. I developed a system to apply total quality management to Salesforce and to improve the processes used in sales organizations. And then I did that for about 12 years. To market myself as a consultant, I wrote 2 books that were published by the American Society for Quality, who is still the foremost organization for quality management and quality metrics worldwide. Those books went on to be bestsellers for the publisher for their category. That's not New York Times bestseller. They gave me a name and some recognition, and as a result, my phone started to ring as a consultant. Okay. And my last stop in full-time work was with in the financial services arena. I was a stockbroker and a financial planner and a retirement planner, and I use what I learned to plan my own retirement.
Okay.
I've been doing for the last 2 years. And in my retirement life, you can see these signs behind you. I spend a lot of time with a nonprofit organization, Bethel New Life. They have a small business development center. And what we do is that we help entrepreneurs launch their businesses. They're located on the west side of Chicago. Speaking of founders, the president of Bethel New Life is Edward Coleman, one of our classmates and founders. He has another schedule, conflict in his schedule today, so he wasn't able to be here with us. But we are in his house, and I told him that I would, give him a plug. So I spend, a significant amount of time working with entrepreneurs that come through this development center. I've helped 10 people write their business plans, and I'm really excited about the potential of folks that are doing that.
Okay.
Aside from that, most people know me as Uncle George or Grandpa George.
Awesome. Okay, Brian, you want to give us your background and catch us up to what you're doing?
Again, Erica, it's great to be here this evening. My name is Brian Harris, excuse me, and my background is in interdisciplinary engineering. That program was started in 1973 at Purdue. It gave you the options to branch out from the typical engineering disciplines and more or less tailor your own curriculum. So my passion early on had been in construction. Actually came to Purdue. I was involved in the School of Civil Engineering. And once the curriculum for interdisciplinary was set up, I got involved primarily in construction management.
Okay.
So construction management is a path that I've followed since undergrad. So I have been involved early on. I was working, fresh out of undergrad, I was working with what was then Amoco and it's now BP Amoco.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved actually in the chemical division. So I was working in chemical sales. I was in and out of refineries, working on grassroots chemical plants. Was involved in chemical sales for about 5 years, was the regional sales manager for the Midwest region. But then the entrepreneurial bug bit me. And, I decided that, hey, the time was right for me to branch out. So I did. And I was involved primarily as a general contractor, worked with various contractors and architects, moved to Houston. Actually, I had, while I was still with Amoco, I was transferred to Houston, worked in Houston for a couple of years, came back to Chicago, was transferred back to Chicago, and then moved back to Texas, lived in Austin, lived in the Houston area, and then came back to Chicago. So settled back in Chicago, again, working as a contractor, working in the construction arena, and have really been doing that pretty much my entire career. And as I had mentioned to you earlier, about 18, 19 years ago, put together a construction management consulting firm where it gave me the flexibility to get involved in projects that I was passionate about. So over the course of that time, I have been involved in condo conversions, working with different companies as a support staff for some of the projects that they've been involved in. And, some of the really visible projects in the Chicago area, primarily Chicago Title and Trust, NBC Tower, McCormick Place, places like that, that you drive by and a lot of people recognize when they see them. And
Right.
as I said, recently was involved in the nonprofit arena, worked with Habitat for Humanity for about 8.5 years, and just recently left that to again pursue my consulting firm. So I've been working on that, and actually with the help of George, who mentors entrepreneurs and helps people develop their business plans. He's been working with me to revive my business. So that's something that I'm really excited about right now. I've been involved with that for the past couple of months. So that's where I find myself, and really happy to be here now and be more involved in some of the activities, particularly that the younger engineering community is involved in. So it's a pleasure being here tonight.
Thank you all so much. As a native Chicagoan, I'm quite proud that NSBE came out of some Chicagoans. One of a good family friends was also a member of NSBE when you all created it. It's no longer here, but I would love, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear the story. Like, what was that day that you all said, hey, I know what we should do. We should start an organization. We would just love to hear, how that all came about, and then, what do you see the difference between when you all started in the field versus what you know of it now? I know as a female, having worked in it 20 plus years, I'm still seeing the same challenges that were there when I got in the field, and I started my career with Amoco many years ago in South Carolina. So, I know everybody's waiting. How did that meeting go? And please tell us the history about the Chicago Six and then your mentor and some of the other members that have transitioned. Who wants to kick it off and tell us how you all got started? And who's the leader? Tell us who's the leader, or who you all think is the leader. Maybe it's each one of you.
The leader's no longer with us, but that was our bond. But in terms of the fact finder, I would have to say that's George. So I'm gonna defer to George and let George get it started.
Okay, George.
Okay, well, how did we get started? Well, first of all, there was a need. Things don't happen unless there's a need. Now, it's important for you guys to understand that we started out in high school together.
So you all are from Chicago. You all went to Purdue together. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes,
Okay.
and 5 of us went to the same high school in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
You know, as high school pals, we were all best friends in high school. So we literally spent 8 years together, the 4 years in high school, as well as the 4 years in college. And as a matter of fact, there were some of us that met before high school. Anthony Harris and Stanley Kirkley, they were in first grade together.
That's amazing. It sounds like a book. Sounds like you guys need a book written about your story.
Ed Coleman, the president of Bethel, and I were in 6th grade together. And then we went to different high schools, and then we met up again at Purdue. So, you know, we were actually a social club when we were in high school. So, you know, that was sort of part of our identity. We threw parties and so forth when we were in high school. And so when we went to Purdue, it was, you know, we already basically had an organization. Now, I think it's really important to recognize the importance of the fact that there were no role models. I never saw a Black engineer until I got to Purdue University.
Wow.
I had seen one Black engineering student, or one student who was planning to go to Purdue University to major in electrical engineering, and that was Eric Harrison. He was a senior when we were high school students. And what was impressive about him is that he was this big 6'7" basketball player on a city level quality basketball team. And yet he had straight A's. And he was planning to major in electrical engineering and go to Purdue University. Brian and I became best friends really from day one. We lived roughly in the same neighborhood. We had the same bus path. When we were on our way to high school, you know, I don't know if he was following me or I was following him, but we wound up at the front door at the same time. You know, and we were there early. We was there so early they had to turn the lights on. So, you know, we made our way to the classroom and just stood there and waited for them to turn the lights on and for other students and teachers to come. That was how we first became acquainted. And then we had many classes together, not just Brian and I, but the other founders too. In the same classes, we were in the same gym class. We decided to run track. All of us were on the track team. So, you know, we had that team environment from the very beginning. And, you know, many of the students from our high school went on to major in engineering after they left. Lindblom Tech was the only technical high school on the south side of Chicago. To my knowledge, there were only 2 technical high schools in Chicago at the time, Lane Tech on the north side, Lindblom on the south side.
I didn't know you were an Eagle.
Yes.
That's right.
5 of us.
We're all Eagles?
5 of us, yes, yes.
Wow. Wow. For those of you who don't know, Lindblom Technical High School is a very prominent school. It certainly was. And I'm a graduate too. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, yes. And so, you know, we recognized the need on our campus, but we also recognized there was a need on other campuses. And that was because many of the students that we went to high school with wound up studying engineering on other campuses, and then we would come home for Thanksgiving break or summer break, and we would see people. You know, we were still in the same social circle. And so we might, you know, go to the same parties. And I can remember having a conversation, my first memory, okay, of wanting to start a society was when we were sitting in the car, John Logan, Anthony Harris, and a fellow named Michael Joshua was, you know, he was a track star and football star, and he was majoring in mechanical engineering in Missouri. And we were telling him about everything that we were doing on our campus. And I remember him saying, wow, I wish we had that on our campus. And so one of us said, well, let's go national. And we have it. So that's one story, but there's 6 of us. The other story that I've heard is that Anthony Harris and who was our president, and Edward Coleman, both of them were majoring in mechanical engineering, and they were involved in this American Society for Mechanical Engineers. And we actually wrote about a trip that they took to New York City with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. It was a technical design conference. They were really excited about seeing these technical designs and the students from Purdue University that were competing in that. And so both Tony and Ed say that that's when they were inspired to go national. Mm-hmm. So you can take those 2 stories and probably there may be 3 other stories, 3 or 4 other stories about what inspired this. But the fact of the matter is, this would not have happened if there were not a need.
Right.
And I think it's also important to recognize that we did not start the Society of Black Engineers at Purdue. That was started by Dr. Arthur Bond and a gentleman named Edward Barnett. His vice president was Fred Cooper. Okay, these were the upperclassmen when we were freshmen, and there had been a tremendous flunk out rate. 80% of the freshmen were flunking out. Black engineering freshmen were flunking out at Purdue. And so Ed Barnett, he was the big man on campus at the time, leader of the Kappa Alpha Psi, and about to graduate in engineering. After he figured out he wasn't going to get us to pledge, he decided to set up a Society of Black Engineers. He told us the Kappas were the engineering society. He had quite a personality, So
that's a good way to get members.
We don't have this story if not for Big Ed. I want to make sure that you understand that. Okay, he started the Society of Black Engineers to help us. Mm-hmm. And he basically said that he felt an obligation as a senior to to help the freshmen and to help reduce the flunk out rate and increase the retention rate. So long story short, at the end of our freshman year, 80% of us were retained. And
wow.
Among the Chicago 6, we had 100%. Okay.
Because you all had each other. That's another important is to had each other. So even if you hadn't started the organization, you all, even though you're in different disciplines, had each other to rely on and help and encourage.
Yes. But even with that, okay, I don't know that we have a Chicago 6 if it were not for Dr. Arthur Bond. This fellow was, I believe he was the 25th Black American to receive a PhD in engineering.
Wow.
Now, he was our faculty advisor. Ed Barnett couldn't start the student chapter without having him as an advisor. They actually went to the university and tried to start the organization 2 or 3 times, and they turned him down until he got Dr. Arthur Bond on board. Dr. Arthur Bond at that time, he was still a student. He was working on his master's. And the interesting thing about that is Dr. Arthur Bond was recruited by Purdue University to work on his master's. He was an incredible human being. He was so smart, he was actually in the first honors engineering class ever started at Purdue University. And the interesting thing about that is that was in 1957. Okay, wow. He did his BS until 1968. All right, so wow. The gap in there that included military service, working as a research technician, and getting married. Okay, and the gap started because he got hit in the head playing baseball and had a concussion and couldn't study. So we had that big gap and came back. Once he completed, as he was about to complete his degree, he had, just think about it, a brother getting an engineering degree in 1968. The world was his oyster.
Mm-hmm.
And so corporations were recruiting him, and Purdue University was recruiting him to be on their faculty because they saw he had the capability. He was heavily involved in motivating students. He set up a Black Cultural Center at Purdue University. And so they offered him the position of coordinator of programs for minority, actually they didn't call it that, coordinator of programs for disadvantaged students, okay? Now, that was a little bit offensive to us because we didn't feel we were disadvantaged. We were smart Alex from the south side of Chicago. We thought we knew everything. It wasn't until later research that I understood that what it meant is educationally disadvantaged.
Right.
That was what that term meant. And so Dr. Bond developed what is the equivalent of what we now call minority engineering programs. They asked him to do that at Purdue University. So he had two jobs. One job was this electrical engineering PhD bound and then professor. He actually taught 8 different classes in electrical engineering at Purdue University. So that was a full-time job.
That's a full-time job.
But his other full-time job was to be a faculty advisor and a coordinator of programs for these disadvantaged engineering students. And so he developed tutorial programs, and he networked with corporations. He had to go to corporations to get the money to run his program. The money wasn't coming from Purdue University. The money was coming from companies like IBM, GE, Kodak, Standard Oil. So he put these programs together that included outreach to high schools, to high school counselors. And then when Ed Barnett said, let's start a Society of Black Engineers, Dr. Arthur Bond benchmarked the University of the University of Michigan's Black Engineering Society. And so this is a part of the story that most people don't know, is that the University of Michigan had a strong Black engineering society. So Dr. Bond got their constitution. And he wrote our constitution by benchmarking that and also benchmarking the constitution for the Society of Women Engineers. So, it's just incredible. And then I should also mention that he was inspired to stay in academia and stay at Purdue in particular because his little sister wanted to study engineering and be like her big brother, okay? So what I want you to recognize is that there was a Black woman at that time, a little Black girl, who was the inspiration for Dr. Bond staying at Purdue and being there for us. He wanted to be there to change the environment, okay? This is a guy, think about it, started engineering in 1957.
Wow.
They were hurling the N-word, every time he stepped out the door.
I'm sure.
Okay? He wanted to improve the environment so that there would be a better environment for his baby sister. So, we had, it's inspired. I want you to understand, it's inspired by a Black woman that he was there.
Right.
Okay, that's right. And then, so 4 years later, Allison Bond became the first Black engineering, the first Black female to get an engineering degree from Purdue University. She, along with another young lady, Barbara Roberts, earned a chemical engineering degree. So Allison Bond had an electrical engineering degree, and Barbara Roberts earned a chemical engineering degree. So just think about the impact that Dr. Bond had.
Absolutely. I want to make sure I those ladies because I want to
So,
feature them
Erica,
on.
you can tell I'm long-winded, so you may need to just stop me.
Well, I'll just jump in with some questions, and we'll just, we'll keep it conversational. So, that first year, I heard you say that you said you wanted to take it national, but when you all came up with the idea to form the organization, did you think that this could blossom to what it is today with chapters all over the world, really, and kind of the destination for companies who are looking for certainly talent in the Black community as far as engineering? Did you all have any idea that it would turn out to be the organization that it is today?
Well, let me speak to that point. I don't think that, as freshmen that we could really realize it on a global scale. Because again, when I think back to the meeting structure, we were there. There was typically probably, 15 to 20 students at each meeting. As being an engineer, it was more of a, creating a regimen, being disciplined, making sure that you came to the meetings on a regular basis, and just being involved and getting people engaged.
Right.
But when you start talking about the heights that the organization has reached now, we weren't talking about that then, not as freshmen, but certainly by seniors, that was our mindset, based on the exposure that we had had.
Right.
But for us, it was just a case of just, assimilating to the campus life, dealing with the challenges that you had as a minority student on a majority campus.
Right.
Okay. Because at that time, there were maybe 900 students, the student body, 900 total students. And, that in itself was, that was something that, you go to classes, you're sitting in a lecture hall, maybe 500 students, and you might be the only person of color in that lecture hall. So that was something that we just had to adjust to, particularly coming from the backgrounds that we grew up in, coming from Chicago, south side of Chicago, going to Lindblom. Lindblom wasn't a whole lot different when we left as when you were there, but still just that environment. So
right.
you come to West Lafayette, Indiana, you come into an environment like that, you're definitely in the minority. And then you start talking about being involved in a society like this. So we were involved in evolution, but as George said, that was spearheaded by Dr. Bond, because he had already been there. He knew the ropes. And so he guided us. We were tools. He guided us. He created the plan, and we helped execute the plan.
Well, that's incredible. That the seeds that you all planted, 40 years. What year did you all start?
1971.
Yep. Have grown to
August 1971.
And then national in 1975.
Right.
Okay. That the seeds that you planted so long ago have, birthed, NSBE as it is, and to see the numbers certainly grow considerably. And I know NSBE is focused on partnering with some other organizations to increase the number of underrepresented minorities in engineering. I think their challenge is 10,000 in 10 years, or 100,000 in 10 years, which is an incredible goal, considering it seems like certainly for Black females, the numbers are sliding backwards. So I'm not quite sure. When I finished from LSU, seems like there were quite a few women, if not in my discipline, chemical. There certainly were some in electrical and mechanical. And when I see some of the numbers that the National Science Foundation reports, that Black females are leaving engineering at a rate of almost 20%, it's very disheartening. And I don't know how we're gonna reach that goal if we're going backwards, right? You can only go forwards. Numbers.
You say leaving engineering, is that leaving engineering college?
College. So those who start, by the time they're fourth or fifth year students, they've already dropped out of engineering. So.
Well, this whole notion of retention of engineering students is a big issue for engineering educators, for all engineering. engineering is one of the most challenging disciplines. As a result, they have more people that change majors, even among the majority students.
Right.
So they've been studying this notion of retention for years. The problem, after the 1960s, when blacks began to enroll, is that there were even more people not making it, higher rates of dropout, and so this was something that was being viewed on a national scale. And it wasn't until the last few years when I started doing some research of my own, I found that the National Academy of Engineering had a task force that they set up in 1974 to study retention of minorities in engineering. And at that time, blacks were the largest they had the largest percentage of all the minorities in engineering. And so they set up a task force that included Purdue University. And there was a gentleman named Dr. Bill Bolt. He and Dr. Bond worked on a research project titled Factors Associated with Attracting and Retaining African Americans, Black Americans in Engineering. And that report and the work, the research that Dr. Bond and Dr. Bolt did was included in the results of the task force. So we had, the National Academy of Engineering, which reached out to as many as 250 engineering educators, heads of engineering colleges, heads of corporations. So they had tremendous reach. And together, those folks decided that they wanted to increase the number of minority engineers. And they had.
What do you think is causing? So, the numbers were low when you all came in. Now they're low again. What would you say, besides maybe the social economic climate, is causing the numbers to low? I mean, NSBE has probably more programs and a larger staff than they ever have. And just my experience and the people that I'm talking to, there really isn't any new programs that are addressing these problems. It seems simple to me when I talk to my fellow engineers and certainly students who are in the field. Some of the same things over and over again, feelings of isolation, right? So it's not just a matter of the coursework being very difficult, which we know it is, but one thing we know, the majority of students get together and they study, or sometimes they have the old tests, so that's a whole nother conversation. But there's strength in working together, and so I mean, this is not rocket science. Mentorship, being able to have an older student like you all had when you got started, to share their experiences, tutor, or whatever. So the things that seems like are causing people to drop out have been discussed ad nauseum. I'm still trying to figure out, is it that we're not serious? When I say we, I mean educators or corporate partners. Are we not serious about these numbers? So we're not putting a lot of effort into it? Because I just don't think that it's that complicated.
Well, the answer has got to be complicated. Otherwise, if it was a simple problem, they would have fixed it already. I do know that this education gap starts at third grade.
Right.
And there, continues to be an education gap trying to find students that are ready to start engineering school. Right. And if you, continue to pull from the public school population, which is the majority of, where our people, begin their education, then, the challenges continue to exist. So, but I think the infrastructure is there to improve it in the future. I'm most excited about this Junior Lego League and the first Lego League, which is robotics competition and robotics tournaments. And I was introduced to it by the NSBE Chicago professionals. They were helping out judging at one of the STEM schools elementary schools in Chicago, and it's just unbelievable when you see kids come in, spend 3 weeks in a summer camp program, STEM program, and when they come out, they can give exceptional presentations on the robots that they designed, on the toys that they build by following the lead of NSBE students. It's frustrating. I thought we would have been further, 45 years later, but we just have to keep on plugging. And the good news is, we've graduated thousands of engineers. We don't have a situation where, you have to actually get enrolled and accepted in engineering school before you see your first Black engineer. That was our situation.
Right.
And so I think we will get there. It's just taking longer than we had hoped.
I think, maybe the biggest factor I see is the culture hasn't changed, right? Engineering departments and deans are still largely white males.
Right.
And so, we can have all these wonderful programs, but as a Black female, I can say that, the environment with which I went to school and also worked was not welcoming. It's still not.
Right.
4 years ago, we have many more female engineers. Certainly we have many more African American engineers, but we're spread out, and I think maybe that's the challenge. So we're increasing the number of engineers, but it's still small in proportion to the number of engineers that graduate every year. So you've got one engineer over here, and then you got another one over there, and you got another one over there. So, that we're not able to kind of build a cohort so that you can have the experience that you all had, to support and help each other. So, that was kind of the impetus of BWISE. And so, the ladies certainly here in Houston are in all kind of companies here. With the unifying theme was, we were struggling, a lot of us, either to find our next opportunity or, to stay engaged in the work we're doing. And I think until the culture realizes, we're not very welcoming. So what do we have to do? Some of the work that we're going to do on our own are still going to face an uphill challenge. So all BWISE can do, and other organizations like BWISE, NOBASHE, NSBE, is to provide support to our memberships, encouragement, so that when you get there, even if you are the only, you can still, do a good job based on the support of the organization. So.
Well, Erica, I think what you guys are doing right now is key to, to retention and to enhancing the actual numbers of Black engineers, because you touched on it earlier, we were fortunate in the sense that we had a support group as early as grammar school in some cases, but certainly in high school, and then coming to Purdue, there were 6 of us that were already best friends. Mm-hmm. So we had a mini little organization right there.
Right.
Then we had an Arthur Bond, and you just can't minimize the influence that he had on us and the importance of having him, as our mentor and our leader. Mm-hmm. So, again, as you say, we all experienced being in different disciplines. Ed and Tony Harris were both in mechanical engineering. Myself and John Logan started out, and Stan Kirtley, we were in civil. George was the only double E. But again, with us being best friends and roommates, we lived together, we were around each other all the time, and then going to meetings, there was that common bond, but, you still had students that were dispersed on campus, different years, in their discipline, different disciplines. So getting them to get engaged and coming to the meetings was key. And what you're doing now, just bringing your group together, trying to be a unified front and a support group for everybody, it starts there. And if you can continue to do that, then things will change and they'll get better. But, people want to feel that they're part of something, because when you feel like you're alone, that's when the challenges become overwhelming,
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the key focus of the group, the ladies know, is a foundation of self-confidence. One of the things I've heard frequently, certainly from the ladies, is, not only do we lack maybe some self-confidence in our abilities when we get on these job sites, certainly the more operational type jobs, where you are the only female, you're working probably in environment where they don't have any other females, no other females have been there, and they probably won't have any when you leave. It can be very overwhelming, and you start to doubt, do I really know that, or were my numbers really correct? And so, I always, tell the ladies that, you've got to work on maintaining your own sense of who you are, and don't let anyone say you can't do that. I don't care how far up the corporate ladder you are, you still have doubters and haters, as the kids say, that, I won't say they're looking for you to fail, but they're certainly not your advocate. No. So, being a support group for ladies, so that, at the end of a long, hard day, and you can say, oh, that was hard, you have another group of ladies who you can, I hate to say commiserate, but, they understand the challenges and can give you some, positive insight to how you can make things better. So, kudos to you all. It's so wonderful that you all had that rich experience, that you had both. What I think are the keys to success is you had each other, right, and then you had a mentor, right? You had someone who you had already blazed a trail before you, who kind of knew the ropes and could, save you guys for some heartaches by giving you some tips and insight, and also clear the path. So for anybody who's ever had a manager or, just somebody in their lives that, was able to clear the path, or like, I don't watch football, but the person who runs in front of the person with the ball, I don't know what that person is called. The blocker. The blocker?
Yes.
I watch basketball. I don't keep up with football.
They have blockers too.
But you know what I mean, the blocker, right? Having a blocker, to say, listen, don't do that, or, let me talk to him. We're not going to have you do that. That is so critical, and just about every person, male or female, that I've met who's had, any amount of success in their career, they've had someone who did that for them. Right. I don't care how smart you are, right? When you get to the work world, how much of, unless you're a pure design engineer, how much of what you learned in school are you doing? I mean, I remember my first job, I was basically a glorified babysitter, and I was just, paid to keep the operators from fighting every day on the production line. So, there's so much that goes into being a person in STEM, that you need someone. You need someone who's already shared that experience to I hate to say commiserate, but just be able to say, this is difficult, and I just want to share this with someone and get your perspective on it. So I'm jealous. I wish I had a group of friends that went to Lindblom with me, and we followed each other to college. So that's wonderful. What a blessing that is. I don't know if most people know that story of NSBE. I feel like NSBE has become such a commonplace organization. Like, everybody knows NSBE. I mean, I can't think of any place I've been where I said NSBE and somebody said, now what is that again? Right. Everybody knows NSBE, but I don't know how many people know your story, know the contributions you all made. I think we take it for granted that, oh yeah, NSBE, yeah. But we don't know there are real people who were involved in the creation of NSBE. So we're so fortunate to have you all on here. And thank you just in general for the work that you did, and paving the way for all of us. And you're still so young. That's the other thing. See how you can be so instrumental in something and still have plenty of years to be the benefits of being an engineer. It keeps you young. So we have about 15 minutes. Anybody who's on the call, I see we've got quite a few people on. So if anybody has any questions, please send me some questions. We'll make sure we get them answered. I have a question, and I see this in magazines a lot, where they ask people, what would you tell your 21-year-old self? So if you could go back in time and give advice to your 21-year-old self, well, maybe it's my assistant, your 19-year-old self in college there at Purdue, what would you tell them about the field of engineering?
Well, I think first to really take it seriously, because I think part of the challenge, and you probably can relate to it, when we came on campus, the freedom that we had is 17, 18-year-olds, you don't have folks around to restrict your movements, you don't have curfews, so you really have to regulate your schedule. You have to be self-motivated. So I know it, speaking personally, in my first year, I didn't take it as seriously as I needed to. You get involved in the social environment. You want to be involved in everything. It's kind of like, a kid in the candy store. So, you got so many choices, you don't really know what to focus on. So you want to be social. You also know that you have to be involved in, your academics. But at the same time, you're in a new environment and there's so many things that you've never been exposed to before. So, at times it becomes overwhelming. But I think just to be able to be more serious, more organized, more structured is going to make the whole process a lot easier for you. I think back on it, again, when we talk in terms of what we did and laying the groundwork for people to come after us and whatnot. Again, we were, as you say, we were blessed because, of what was in place, the infrastructure that was in place with Dr. Bond, having each other, being there together, having that support group, but still each of us in our own way, would get distracted. And, at times we would have to kind of reel each other in. So I think, it's important that you understand that this is serious and that, you're not going to be able to recapture those 4 or 5 years, however many years it takes you in undergrad. So you better take it seriously coming in. And if I had anything to do over again, it would be that, to come in there with a more serious attitude, because, again, it would have helped me adjust and deal with things a lot better. But at the same time, the way I approached it, I'm kind of one of those individuals that excels, in pressure situations and kind of under fire. So the environment that I was involved in, that I kind of created for myself, really helped me to take that attitude that I won't be denied. It's like I came in here. I came in here voluntarily. I'm going to leave here voluntarily. That was really the attitude I took, because a lot of people that came with us, they were asked to leave and not return.
That's true.
And you experienced that. So again, it gave me that, like I say, it gave me that never say die attitude that sticks with me to this day. So that's something that I really cherish. But again, like I said, I think just realizing that as a young engineering student coming in, that you got to be serious about what you're doing, and reach out to people. You have the resources, understand the resources, reach out to those individuals, engage them in conversation, pick their brains, talk to them and find out how they went about things and what they're doing, so that you understand how you need to approach things. And it's
Right.
going to definitely help you in the long run.
Now, would you go back into engineering if you had to start over today? Would you go back?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Just based on how I approach things in life. I can't see any other discipline I could have gotten involved in that would have helped me navigate life like I have.
We have a technological society that we live in now. So having technical skills, regardless of your occupation, is more important now than it ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice to students is, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a dentist, get your engineering degree first. We have peers that studied engineering and went on to those professions afterward. I talked to a very, very successful Black patent attorney who said that law school was easy after earning his electrical engineering degree. I know a gentleman who actually was one of my role models when I was a co-op student. He was several years ahead of me, and he was a mechanical engineer. He went on to become a dentist, and at this point, he's the head of the alumni organization at Indiana University.
Hmm.
So, this guy has just continued on with that same work ethic that he learned when he was in engineering school. But the advice that I would give myself, in that transition from high school to college, particularly in engineering, is to understand that engineering is a team sport. When I was in high school, I had complete control, just do my homework, take the tests, and get the A, okay? You can't do that in engineering school. You have to talk to other people. You have a lab partner. You have to, and quite frankly, I think the fact that engineering is a team sport is what has equipped so many people to continue NSBE. Because they have, it's required that they learn how to work with a lab partner, learn how to work with other people, and they learn that skill when they get summer jobs. And so I'm very, very proud of the fact that the young people have continued. Each generation has done its part. The way I look at it, Ed Barnett, Dr. Bond, they did their part. The Chicago Six, we did their part. It was just as important for the work that the students did after we left campus to not just to come together, but to stay together and to move NSBE to the level that it is now. I give kudos, and also, since we're talking to Black women in science and engineering, I give kudos to the Black women of NSBE and the contributions that you have made. And I can recall during the years I was a district manager at Hewlett-Packard, coming back to Purdue University to participate on the industrial advisory board. I could see the participation that, and the influence that the Black women had on that organization. And I see it at the professional level now. So, we wouldn't be where we are without the contributions of Black women in engineering. And, the very first national chairperson, very first female national chairperson came from Purdue University, and she was on our team when we founded the organization. Virginia Booth, I want to give a shout out to her.
We have her on the website.
Okay, Virginia Booth, was invaluable. She was a contributor from day one. As a matter of fact, I went back through some of our old publications, and she was writing several articles in there. So she showed that commitment from day one. The very first publication, we had all young men on our team. But the second publication, we had about 3 women, and then by the time we got to our fourth publication after the National Society was started, we had probably a third of the contributors to what was going on in the Society of Black Engineers at Purdue were female. When I look back at some of the articles that were written, and we were writing articles trying to attract young black females into engineering because we thought it would be a great career path for them. And to this day, I have a 6-year-old grandson, and every now and then the subject comes up, what does he want to do when he grows up? I said, well, you can do anything you want after you get your engineering degree. So he's being programmed early. And when I talk to NSBE students, we've been to Northern Illinois University together. When I talk to NSBE students, I tell them I want my grandson to be like you. Mm-hmm. I see NSBE as a flat-out oasis for our community. The good work that's being done, and the caliber of the character of the students in NSBE. And when you're a young person, you need to have your mind occupied, because if you don't, you'll be involved in nonsense. And when you get into engineering school, you have to work hard. You have to put the nonsense down.
That is
And that's what we need. I mean, we need this not just for individual families, for individual people to be successful. We need this for our entire community. We need leaders to come from NSBE for our entire community. Calvin Young, came out of, he's one of the recent national chairs of NSBE, went on to Harvard and got his MBA, came out of there and saw the problems in his hometown of Baltimore, and he ran for mayor. And he was in the hunt. And although he didn't get elected, he was recruited by the administration to be a part of the solution going forward. So it doesn't matter whether you want to be, in politics or law or medicine or, in technology. The problem-solving skill set that you learn in engineering, the ability to break down and analyze situations, that's a transferable skill. And I believe that, it challenged us to the point where we believe we could overcome any obstacle. It toughens up your mind so that you can overcome any obstacle. And what you find when you go beyond college is you have family obstacles that you have to deal with. Okay, you have emotional, mental obstacles that you have to deal with. So if you have a strong mind, you are positioning yourself so you can deal with life in general.
absolutely.
Engineering, I think, trains you to have a strong mind.
It does. I think that ability to solve problems is invaluable. Sometimes our loved ones don't appreciate it.
Yeah, but when they need advice, who do they call?
I hear a lot of engineer cracks and jokes about, oh, my wife's an engineer, my husband's an engineer, and it's not always, with love that they make these jokes.
Right. But so there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, then they want to call us.
Right.
Well, this has been great. This is so for those of you who joined tonight. I don't know many opportunities that you get to see the people who started an organization, right? Because usually they're so busy that they don't have time to talk to people to share the story. So thank you all for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule. I think it's important for this young generation to see where it all started, and I know BWISE is going to be a supporter and proponent of you all, so wherever you all will be, we will be supporting you. We're going to have you come back. I'm trying to figure out how I can write the story.
Absolutely.
Write the story of NSBE. I feel like there's a book in there somewhere. I need to work on that and write that story, and then work myself in as a fellow Lindblom graduate. I think I need to sprinkle myself in there. But
there has been some talk of a movie, so
it would make a wonderful movie, and I would be sitting on the front row. I would be there with those on, and I'm sure as well. So I want to thank you all again for coming on. And I did have one last question. I hope you guys can see it. Can you see? Oh, you won't be able to see. Oh, I was trying to show that picture.
it's a glare.
It's a glare. Let's see if I can turn my light off. Still no.
No.
What is
So
it?
this famous picture of the Chicago Six.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I personally know who Stan Kirtley is, so I'm cheating because I know who he is.
Mhm.
But I'm assuming Arthur Bond is the gentleman that's seated. And then there's
are you
three.
wearing tuxedos?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay.
So two gentlemen have glasses and one does not.
So the fellow on the far left of that picture with the glasses and the mustache,
Okay.
black mustache. That's a young man's black mustache. Then Ed Coleman, if I'm not mistaken, is standing next to me. He's the other one wearing glasses, I believe.
That was at a dinner. I wasn't there.
Right. Brian wasn't at that. And then Anthony Harris and Brian, they're always easy to spot because they're, between 6'4" and 6'8". I can't measure that high. So that's Anthony Harris there, tall.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep promoting you all. As I was preparing for this, surprisingly, I didn't see as much on the web as I thought about you all in specific. Of course, there's lots of information about NSBE, and I'm sure NSBE has the history on the website. But I think it's important for kids to see, not only, are you all contributors, to, thousands of us who've come after you, but you're still active, you're still doing wonderful things, have, very fulfilling, engaging careers. And I think that's important to see that engineering is not just the beginning. There's life after engineering, and long after you leave corporate America or academia, people are still having very rich, full careers because they made the choice into engineering. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure all our viewers would say thank you as well. So this will also be a video on YouTube, so I'm going to make sure that it's public. And so anybody who couldn't join us to watch it live will be able to see it. Turn my light back on. We'll be able to see it in replay, and certainly gained, lots of insight and hear the history, because like I said, I think that's so important. If you don't know your history, how are you going to know where you're supposed to go? Right. So once again, thank you all for being so gracious to come on. I'm so excited and so proud of my fellow Lindblom Eagles. I did not know that.
That's right.
I'm going to be walking with my chest stuck out now. I did not see. That's something I learned. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to these people at Lindblom and say, why is that not all over the school? How come no one told me that when I was at Lindblom? That should have been everywhere. So. You guys, I extend a open offer for you all to come if you ever have anything you want to share. It's not like I'm Jay Leno. I don't have millions of viewers, but anytime you all want to come back and share something, you have an open invitation. You can come back and talk about whatever you want to. When you get your third member, if he'd like to join you, we would welcome to have you all back on and continue the dialogue. I know I'm going to get lots of calls and questions. Thanks for doing this, because it's been great. Thank you all so much for doing this. Any parting words? I'll let you guys have any parting words if you want to the audience.
Keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing, because again, as I mentioned earlier, we were fortunate to have a group that was close knit, and basically, if you saw one, you saw all of us. So it's important to keep that unit together. And a lot of those days when it seems like the challenges are insurmountable, you'll find a way to get through them. But just keep everybody close.
Okay.
And then I would say, don't worry about how the young people look. Just make sure they do the homework and get into engineering school, because while we were there, we looked like the cast of Soul Train. We did not look like people who would, be wearing suits and ties one day.
You can wear your suits and tie after graduation.
That's right.
Focus on your books right now. Focus on your books. It's just amazing. I don't know if you've talked. When I was in school, we had the Texas Instruments that we called it reverse Polish. I'm not sure if that's politically correct, but we had that big calculator. I mean, that's the extent that we had, when we were calculating stuff. And then, of course, if you took programming to solve a problem, you had the computer. But you know, when I look at how far people have come, there are people actually who had cards. You know, you had to feed your cards into the computer. I'm sure, George, you can relate to this as an electrical engineer. So when I see these kids today, I'm like, we basically had an abacus, and you guys, we
dealt with slide rules. Yeah,
slide rule. That's right. You guys have no reason not to get good grades in engineering.
You know, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, Erica, an absolute pleasure.
Yes, yes.
Thank you all. Many blessings to you. Continue good health. And I'm going to send some people directly to both of you because I've got somebody in mind. Hopefully she's watching, but if not, I'll call her after this that hopefully will sign up for your program, George. And I'm sure she'll have lots of questions for you as well, Brian. So thank you again. You all have a wonderful evening. Viewers, hopefully you enjoyed this 1 hour chat, and we'll have them on again. Don't worry. So if you had some questions and you didn't get a chance to ask them, they'll be back, hopefully. They'll come back and share their experiences again with us. So again, thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you.
We will.
Bye-bye.